Now for another edition of Tell Me Why I'm Wrong. Tucker Carlson showed up in Moscow this week to interview Vladimir Putin. It turned out to be anything but an interview. Putin droned on for 2 hours and 7 minutes, while Tucker sat there like an eager puppy. Occasionally, but rarely, he got in a question, like this one about the power of the deep state in Washington.
It sounds like you're describing a system that's not run by the people who are elected in your telling.
That's right. That's right.
But more telling than what Tucker asked is what he didn't ask. Nothing about why Putin invaded a sovereign country. Nothing about targeting civilians. Nothing about Russian war crimes. A reporter can ask Putin a tough question if he wants a real interview. Why is it that so many of the people that oppose Vladimir Putin end up dead or close to it? But apparently, that's not why Tucker went to Moscow. During the Cold War, gullible Westerners who spread Soviet propaganda were dismissed as useful idiots. But calling Tucker that is unfair to useful idiots. No, he's made a cynical decision to chase MAGA's affection for dictators. And what better way to cash in than Putin's Kremlin?
So that's former Fox News host and lifetime Republican Chris Wallace. I'm going to show you some more of that segment in just a second, but first want to give you a little bit of context here. Chris Wallace and Tucker actually used to work together at Fox News, where they notoriously did not get along, which, as far as I'm concerned, is frankly a badge of honor for Chris Wallace at this point. Now, Wallace, again, who is a lifetime Republican, basically shifted over to CNN and left Fox News at the end of the Trump era. He had kind of just had enough. MAGA and Trump had just gone too far for him. But he is a conservative. He is a Republican. What he is not is a traitor. Now, before I show you some more of what he had to say, I want to actually show you what Tucker claimed was his justification for going over to Russia to interview Vladimir Putin. But first, just a reminder about what Tucker said at the outbreak of this war in Ukraine.
Because people are dying on the front lines. You think it's a joke?
Why do I care? Why do I care what's going on in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia? And I'm serious. Like, why do I care?
I'll tell you why.
And why shouldn't I root for Russia, which I am?
Why shouldn't I root for Russia, which I am? Our very impartial journalist, Tucker Carlson. And now here's what he says his justification was for interviewing Vladimir Putin. Play the clip.
Here's why we're doing it. First, because it's our job. We're in journalism. Our duty is to inform people. 2 years into a war that's reshaping the entire world, most Americans are not informed. They have no real idea what's happening in this region, here in Russia or 600 miles away in Ukraine. But they should know. They're paying for much of it in ways they might not fully yet perceive. The war in Ukraine is a human disaster. It's left hundreds of thousands of people dead, an entire generation of young Ukrainians, and it's depopulated the largest country in Europe. But the long-term effects are even more profound. This war has utterly reshaped the global military and trade alliances, and the sanctions that followed have as well. And in total, they have upended the world economy. The post-World War II economic order, the system that guaranteed prosperity in the West for more than 80 years, is coming apart very fast, and along with it, the dominance of the US dollar. These are not small changes. They are history-altering developments. They will define the lives of our grandchildren. Most of the world understands this perfectly well. They can see it. Ask anyone in Asia or the Middle East what the future looks like. And yet the populations of the English-speaking countries seem mostly unaware. They think that as nothing has really changed. And they think that because no one has told them the truth. Their media outlets are corrupt. They lie to their readers and viewers. And they do that mostly by omission.
So something to keep in mind as Tucker calls himself some sort of independent journalist, just calling balls and strikes, doing cutting edge journalism. You know, he's this investigative journalist on the cutting lines who will go where no other person goes, which he frequently likes to claim. In a slander lawsuit that Fox News had to defend Tucker Carlson against, they literally raised the defense that Tucker could not be taken seriously. And here's what the judge in the case had to say. Quote, "The general tenor of the show should then inform a viewer that Carlson is not stating actual facts about the topics he discusses and is instead engaging in exaggeration and non-literal commentary. Fox persuasively argues that given Mr. Carlson's reputation, any reasonable viewer arrives with an appropriate amount of skepticism about the statements he makes." So in other words, a reasonable person can't possibly believe what would come out of Tucker Carlson's mouth. And that's his own lawyers saying that. But you know who actually really believes what Tucker has to say and who loves him? Russians. Here is what Russian state TV put out the other day on their own residents' love of Tucker Carlson.
На сегодняшний день, на мой взгляд, это самый смелый, самый отважный американский журналист, который смело высказывает свое видение, свою позицию.
Такер Карлсон часто мелькает в новостях, но он правду говорит. Поэтому у него, кстати, проблемы в США из-за этого. Он сейчас, насколько я понимаю, сюда приехал. Вот. И не знаю, пустят ли его обратно.
Я очень уважаю за его смелость, я очень уважаю за его нормальное человеческое мнение о том, что происходит на самом деле, за его разумность, за его логику, за его понимание, где...
Ну и надо сказать, что очень положительно отношусь, потому что это объективный журналист, который реально показывает то, что происходит в мире, несмотря на то, что иногда его позиция не воспринимается особенно демократами в США, особенно как бы сторонниками Байдена.
It's really just remarkable stuff. He's more popular in Russia than he is in America. Now, here's the rest of what Chris Wallace and his guests had to say this morning. Play the clip.
All right, Brett, tell me why I'm wrong.
You are not wrong. You are not wrong. And any of us who have had opportunities to interview bad guys, and as we should, ask tough questions and hold them at least to a moment in a spotlight to which they are not accustomed. And what you saw there, I mean, I think I mentioned this to you, you're looking at the Tokyo Rose of our day, basically broadcasting fascist propaganda to credulous people in the West who are eager to buy into the mythology of Putin as a champion of the Nordic races against their enemies and as an enemy of wokeness. It's one of the most disgraceful. To call it a journalistic performance is wrong because he's not a journalist. Right. I don't even think it was a performance. It was just simply being a scribe to one of the most vicious dictators of our time.
Also, he did sit there. That was astonishing for that half hour, allowing Putin to go on about the history. I mean, it just wasn't even very good. It was like watching someone who can't play a sport just fumble over and over again as an interviewer.
What do you think Tucker was up to in Moscow?
Blinis? I don't know. I don't know what he was
Rehabilitating himself.
Yeah,
he's trying to make himself relevant.
Attention for himself because he's not
Chris,
washed up. He's washed up, I guess. I guess that's how I'd put it. He was trying to get attention for himself and make himself relevant, that I can score this interview. And the reason he scored this interview is because he's a lapdog.
I'm surprised you didn't mention, though, the fact that he did ask some questions about Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter who has been detained, and he was forceful about it. He pressed the issue.
I wouldn't say this.
I think he was
First of all, he wasn't forceful about it, and secondly, he said, well, maybe he was a spy. Maybe he took some information, and the Wall Street Journal said no. He's a journalist.
That's right.
Which Tucker Carlson isn't.
It really is a sad day where people like Tucker Carlson have so much influence over such a large swath of the country. For people who do watch Tucker, they tend to believe Tucker and Tucker alone, at least as it pertains to journalism. It's very similar to Trump. These people have totally lost faith in our institutions. They've lost faith in the media. They've lost faith in the government. So they look to these kind of personalities that they connect with, and they really just believe what they and they alone say as these truth tellers, as they like to call themselves. And it's probably why Trump is actually, people within his camp have said they're considering Tucker Carlson as a potential VP pick. They are two sides of the same traitorous coin. With Really American, I'm Justin Horwitz. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got a ton planned going forward into this election, and you don't want to miss it. Thanks so much.